Good day, everyone, especially to our instructor and to my classmates. And this is the subject of governance development. And our report is entitled The Key Issues in Governance, the Role of Institution and Organization. These are the following members of Group 4, namely Althea May Magallanes, Arakisha Lumagang, Mary Ann Lao, and Liza Madon. Before our report begin, let us pray first, and after the prayers is the icebreaker.
Good day, everyone. Our first topic for today is all about the role of institutions and organizations. What are the rules of institutions? Based on my research, institutions play an important role by reducing uncertainties and establishing a stable economy and social relations through formal rules and informal norms and traditions. Institutions determine what is acceptable and acceptable to a society. They determine the rules of the game. So, institutions stands as indestructible forces against human liberty, irrefragable to any conflict values from the individual. Institutions are structures of a society that fulfill the needs of the society. Not only are they essential to the society's need, they also help to build society itself. Institution appears to provide a beneficial service to a society. So these are the example of a government institutions: Office of the Vice President, Congress of the Philippines, Senate of the Philippines, Committee on Youth, Women and Family Relations, House of Representatives, Congressional Oversight Committee on Labor and Employment, Supreme Court of the Philippines, Department of Agrarian Reform, Department of Agriculture, and many more. So they are entrusted with making and enforcing the rules of a society as well as with regulating relations with other societies. In order to be considered government, a ruling body must be recognized as such by the people it purports to govern. Their functions are providing leadership, maintaining order, providing public services, providing economic security, and providing economic assistance. So next are, what are the rules of organization? So the Philippines is a republic with a presidential form of government wherein power is equally divided among its three branches: the executive, legislative, and judicial. So what is executive branch? It is composed of the president and the vice president who are elected by direct popular vote and serve a term of 6 years. The Constitution grants the president authority to appoint his cabinet. These departments form a large portion of the country's bureaucracy. The legislative branch. It's authorized to make laws, alter, and repeal them to the power vested in the Philippines Congress. This institution is divided into the Senate and the House of Representatives. The judicial branch holds the power to settle controversies involving rights that are legally demandable and enforceable. This branch determines whether or not there has been a grave abuse of discretion among the lack or excess of jurisdiction on the part and instrumentality of the government. It is made up of a Supreme Court and the lower courts.
Key issues and challenges in governance, the Philippine experience. So, the first key issues and challenges in governance is the policy issues, concern, and challenges. Most people agree that the constitutional and legal frameworks in the Philippines provide the foundation for good governance. The policy environment allows people's participation and public scrutiny and criticism of governance. The second key issues and challenges in good governance is the problems in the bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is a distinctive arrangement used by human beings to organize their activities. There, there are two problems in bureaucratic type of government. This is inefficiency and arbitrariness. Arbitrariness. For nearly half a century, the Philippines was caught in an endless cycle of reform exercises that hardly produce tangible and lasting results. These are the structural issues. First, the duplicated function and overlap jurisdiction, outdated and slow government procedures. Third, various loopholes in administrative procedures. And the last one is limited capacity for policy analysis and strategic long-range planning that cause delays and higher costs in handling business. Difficult and give rise to a host of other problems including implementation and coordination. As reflected in the country governance assessments, administrative, the Philippines did not fully succeed because of these 10 reasons. First, lack of acceptance of and commitment to the need for reform by political authorities and different affected entities. Second, lack of stakeholders' appreciation and agreement concerning administrative reform being a long, strategic and continuous process. Third, lack of understanding that reforms objectives that are specific, measurables, realistic, and time-bound. The fourth one, lack of good reform implementation, strategies, and adequate resources to carry them out. 5. Lack of an established central agency tasked with formulating, coordinating, and monitoring reforms and providing corrective measures. 6. Lack of reform procedures and regulation that are fairly and consistently applied. 7. Lack of meaningful stakeholder participation in the entire reform process. 8. Lack of strong and sustained support of political leaders. 9. Lack of established and enforced system of accountabilities. And 10. Lack of safety nets for groups and individuals who may be disenfranchised by intervention. Studies about Philippine civil service system point to several deficiencies include weak mechanism for planning, agenda setting, and policy making. Second, failure to implement and maintain an appropriate performance management and measurement system. Third, overlapping and duplicating government function and activities. Fourth, overemphasis on rules and procedures rather than direct resource management towards the realization of intended outcomes and impacts. Fifth, a highly politicized bureaucracy. And the last one, lack of required managerial and technical expertise. Issues on public fiscal management. Public fiscal management prior to government reform programs that are weakness and constraints in fiscal management, especially in budgeting process. The major cause of decline including the following. First, tax evasion and weakness in the tax structure. Second, the private corporation and banking sectors, which are major contributors to the national coffers, were weighed down on by no performing asset. Tax structure, tax revenues as a share of GDP fell from 13.9% in 2000 to 13% in 2001. About 150 billion is lost to tax evasion, 92 billion peso of which constitute uncollected income tax in succeeding years. This translated into higher deep saving payment, which along with the non-passage of important tax measure created a vicious cycle of higher deficit and debt. And the last key issues and challenges in good governance is the deficiencies in the political and electoral system. Public confidence in election outcome is low because of widely alleged irregularities in Philippines electoral process. The modernization of the electoral system in the country today is an attempt to enhance public confidence in election outcomes and address traditionally election anomalies such as cheating, intimidation, and bribery.
Cite the different problems, challenges, and issues encountered by the different actors of governance, discuss the trends, efforts, and challenges for good governance, identify the lesson learned, and recommend solutions to realize good governance. So let's proceed to the next slide. First, cite the different problems, challenges, and issues encountered by the different actors of governance. So, before citing the different problems, issues encountered by the different actors of governance, let us define first who are the actors of governance. So, there are three actors of governance, which is the government, civil society, and private sectors. So, the government is basically the municipalities, province, nation, military, NGOs, CBOs, media, and lobbyists. The second one is civil society, which is the NGOs, CBOs, media, trade unions, scientists, formal employees, informal workers, the urban poor, the urban middle class. In the private sectors are the lobbyists, media, trade unions, entrepreneurs, multinational companies. So, next is we're going to cite the different problems, challenges, and issues encountered by the different actor of governance. So, the first issue is in the economy or in the economic sector. So, these are the challenges faced by the different actors, which is the rapid falling of unemployment. So, the cause of the rapid falling of unemployment is due to the pandemic and the no operation of the business, or the business was bankrupt due to have no income during the pandemic. And next is the high inflation. When you say high inflation, this is refers to the increase of commodities and goods in the market, and the growing government debt and ongoing pandemics. Second one is the healthcare. So healthcare is the second big problems in our country today, or not just in our country but the whole world. So in the healthcare, there is a high maternal. This is refers to the pregnant woman, and where the newborn is refers to the baby. So there is an increase of the maternal sa mga nanay na namatay and sa mga baby nga namatay pod, and a high fertility rate. So a high fertility rate is teenage pregnancy. The example of that is the teenage pregnancies. And the next one is the tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is one of the big problems in our healthcare system today. As you can see that the tuberculosis or TB is, as Filipino, we are the number one in Asia. So there are million of cases, more than 1 million of cases of positive of tuberculosis. The next one is dengue, malaria, and HIV. And the next one is the number 3 problems is the national safety and security threats. When you say national safety, this is refers to the hostile government, terrorism, illegal drugs, proliferation, national disasters, and diseases. So the hostile government refers to the foreign governments who are going to, halimbawa, mag-ialam sa ato ang sovereignty, proliferation, and this is refers to the enemy state, which is, for example, in our country, the NPA, and the NPA was promoting their ideology of communism. So they want the Philippines to be a communist country. Number 4 is the climate change and environment. We all know that climate change, the example of climate change are the temperatures are rising, droughts, glacier melts, accelerated sea level. So When the glacier melt, it will accelerate sea level rise. Pag severe sa natural disasters, more lives will be affected. Extreme rainfall and resource shortage. And the environmental degradation is na pagkuha ng likas na yaman sa lupa. So this cause the environmental degradation or pagkasira sa environment. So let's discuss the trends, efforts, and challenges for good governance. First is strengthening multi-stakeholder cooperation among government, private sector, and society. So this is the efforts to promote good governance, strengthening multi-stakeholder. So when we say strengthening multi-stakeholder, this is not just the obligation of the government. All of the actors of governance must work together despite of differences in the rules. Number 2 is providing targeted technical and capacity building support, including truth training and awareness raising campaigns. So this is the trends and efforts made by the government. So they are providing targeted technical and capacity building. For example, the example for this is that the member of BIFF fighter. So katong mga nag-surrender, tagaan sila sa government og livelihood, gitrain sila through TESDA. So I was aware of this kay na may napukat at that time og balita. So providing targeted technical and capacity building support. So this is the support made by the government para dili na sila mobalik as BIFF members. So di na sila makiglaban sa gobyerno. This next is promoting interagency cooperation and coordination. So promoting interagency cooperation and coordination, it is just, for example, in the illegal drugs operation. So the Philippine National Police were going to cooperate with agencies like, for example, NBI, CIDG to investigate that issues. So this is the example efforts and challenges for good governance, ang pag-promote sa cooperation and coordination. So in cooperation and coordination, my example is the cooperation and coordination of the three government agencies, which is the PDEA, PNP, and CIDG. So number 5 is supporting authorities' efforts against corruption, money laundering, and terrorism financing. So this is the efforts ang naghimo sa atong gobyerno to promote good governance. So supporting authorities' effort against corruption. So as you can see today, there is a government presidential hotline where you can report the corruption that you know. So for example, sa inyong barangay, you know that there is a practice in corruption. So naanto siya, I forgot. So 888 ba to nga landline o 488 ba to nga kuan? So makasend ka dito nga mabasa sa mga staff sa pangulo ang mga corrupt practices. So the money laundering, for example, for this the Palawan Pawn Shop. The Palawan Pawn Shop has the limit, magpadala ka na i-limit 50,000 only. This is kanang para maiwasan ang money laundering or kanang funding of terrorism. Next is conducting targeted training on conflict of interest and prevention. Example for this, guys, is the AITA group. Katong AITA group, we all know that ang uban sa mga AITA is not uneducated, so dali ra kay sila brainwash sa mga leftist group or sa mga NPA. So to promote to prevent this conflict, so they conduct training sa mga ita nga kuan. Like for example, nagkatak sila training about sa mga kuan, kung unsa na nga group inyong kuangan, dili mo mga paniwala. So this is a certain awareness as well para ma-prevent ang conflict. So ginakuan nila ang kuan, naas like campaign ng ang PNP or ang Armed Forces. So nakita na ko ni dati sa YouTube nga ang NPA ang mga Armed Forces of the Philippines kaya nag-add sila sa mga remote places. They are going to remote places to amiguhon to nilang katong mga individuals, mga groups or mga indigenous people, and they use these indigenous people to provide them the information in case there is the presence of the presence of the rebels are rebels in their area. Next, supporting the creation of anti-corruption strategies, action plans, and bodies. So, ikuan na ako na ganina. So, supporting creation of anti-corruption strategies, action plans, and bodies. Promoting integrity and public service through development and implementation code of ethics and assets declaration mechanism. So, this is the efforts of the government to promote the integrity in public service. Next is the regulation on whistleblower protection. So this is the efforts by the government. So when we say whistleblowers, this is the person nga musulti o kuan kanang corruption sa usa ka agency of this individual nga naghimog kuan practices nga kuan. For example, sa PhilHealth before, usa ka attorney ang is the whistleblower, which is the anti-fraud ba to siya? Fraud, na-assign siya sa anti-fraud divisions of PhilHealth. So, that time, the government kanang ensure the protection of the witness para di siya patyon. Sound and transparent public procurement processes. So, this is following the public processes. Example that there is a bidding. So, kailangan mo follow sa mga processes to ensure the transparencies. Government nakabantay kapag sige mga processes because that is part of the sa ilang office management. Providing relevant legislative framework, advising to improve transparency and civic participation. So another efforts of the government is to improve transparency and civic participation. The civic participation is that this is the cooperation of civil society. Next, bringing more women and youth into decision-making processes. Next is strengthening management of public funds. Muni ang kwan. Strengthening management of public funds is that ensure that nga ang kuan government funds is maadto jud sa proyekto. Tama ang pagka-manage. Supporting regulatory reform and simplification, introducing e-government solutions. So it is the easiest way para ma-access this is the easiest way to access government service using the technology. For example, karon nakabantay ba mga other government services is pwede na sa online. Like for example, nga kuan sa SS we can use GCash to pay our contribution. So next, this is the lesson learned for good governance. So this is based on my opinions. To achieve good governance, every factors of governance, which are the government, civil society, and private stakeholder, must work together despite of differences of rules and abiding the good governance characteristics. So para ma-achieve nato ang promote or achieve the good governance, we must never only rely on the government efforts. Dapat we are doing all our parts. We are helping the government. So rule of law. So what I can contribute to the government is that I need to follow or obey the law. Respect the authority. Muna siya ang kuan. Muna akong example sa rule of law that I must follow the law nga gi-enforce sa government. This is the common efforts. We must work together with the government. So we belong to the actors of governance.